much their lives are still upended, how much work they still have to do to get their family back to normal, what it's done to their household economy is something that's going to affect them for years. Some of the other neighborhood residents, people who work in the neighborhood that we spoke with Monsignor Ferrarese, talked about the incredible dislocation they've gone through and the fact that federal aid only went so far and there's still so much that needs to be done. And obviously the town hall meeting, you've got a sense of the intensity of feeling in the community. People came out in huge numbers because they need to know that their needs will be met. They need to know that this recovery money will lead to some fairness, will lead to some opportunity. So what I'm committed to is making sure that the recovery dollars and all of our efforts focus on employing people who were affected by this crisis and using this as a moment to start to turn their lives around and get them decent paying jobs in the process to every extent possible. I want to make sure we address the sounds of affordable housing that Sandy made worse, but that existed intensely here in the Rockaways even before Sandy. And I want to keep working on the issues of healthcare. This community suffered when the Peninsula closed. St. John's Hospital is under threat. The health needs are greater than ever as a result of Sandy. So I'm committed to focusing on those three needs, the living wage jobs, the affordable housing, and the health needs of the community for the long term.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work with the hospitals,
Thank you,
really.
And I think the important thing here is this community is organized, energized to make sure the government is held accountable. And I think that's a great blessing. So with that, welcome your question. Yes, Michael.
Can you explain technically and specifically how you enforce some sort of living wage provision with federal monies or state or city monies? How does that work?
I'm not a lawyer, so it's an aspirational point. I want to make sure to the maximum extent the law allows, the city has the flexibility that we're getting people decent paying jobs as part of this recovery effort, and that we're making sure that people from the affected neighborhoods get the first opportunities. I think in the past, a lot of relief efforts have not always focused on those who were affected having the employment opportunities. I want to make sure within the limits of the laws and rules that media questions only, my friend, and within the limits of the laws and rules of FEMA and of the United States government that we, to the maximum extent possible, favor those who live in affected areas.
Mr. Blasio, there's been a huge number of people still displaced in Rockaways area and other parts of the affected area. And there's been huge problems with FEMA, people getting the compensation, be able to have the repairs done, move back in. This has happened under a Democratic administration. What are you going to say to people who say it's going to be any different under a Democratic mayor in New York? What are you going to do to help people that's still out of their homes?
Very, very different realities of the federal government and the local government. Obviously, local government is close to the people. And I, for one, feel the people's suffering, and it's hard to miss when you have these conversations and you see what we've seen today. So I'm very committed to making sure that benefits that people deserve get to them more quickly. Certainly, I've been displeased, and my office has been working on this ever since Sandy hit. Been really displeased with how slow a lot of the FEMA benefits have been incoming. It's my job to push them now as public advocates. As people choose this mayor, it'll be my job to continue to push them to do more.
And what are people who are still displaced and living in hotels?
First of all, the biggest disaster facing Rockway, this is press. Big orders on Mayor, can you do about it?
Look, I think the federal government has left us in an untenable situation where people are going to be asked to pay flood insurance they simply can't afford. And I think we have to use every power we have to convince the federal government either to delay the implementation or to come up with some kind of subsidy to make it possible for working class and middle class people to handle that insurance level. To me, this is the ultimate unfunded mandate, but it's affecting families, not local government. It's hitting families right over the head like a 2x4, and a huge number of families can't afford it.
Do you expect to continue to keep the same people in place who are working on it now in the administration with the recovery?
I don't get into the details of personnel. General, I'd say but the case of recovery is very
One of the people we heard.
One question at a time. We're so busy men these days, but you won't be able to speak to us. Pretty slow. I mean, how useful.
it's very useful. Remember, this is one of a number number of visits I paid here since Sandy hit. I was out here the day immediately following Sandy hit. Senator Sanders, Assemblymember Goldfeder, many times. I give them a lot of credit. They were very hands-on in addressing the needs of the community, and that was a good experience of going out well into the night, making sure that the light towers were placed in strategic places so that people could have light in a situation where so much of the Rockaways was plunged into darkness for days and weeks on end. So I know that both of them did extraordinary work, and I was here a number of times with them, but since I've been here a number of times, so to me this is a steady growth in my understanding, and I intend to be coming back. This problem will take a long time to solve, and the next mayor has to be hands-on about it.
We've heard a lot of palpable.
One question at a time.
We've heard a lot of palpable fear today from residents about another storm coming and what's going to happen. In your administration, what resiliency measures would you give the people of Rockaway, and how do you help them?
As everyone in this group knows, I have no trouble disagreeing with Mayor Bloomberg when I think he's wrong, but I think on the broad strokes of his resiliency plan, I agree with. I want to use that as a template to begin. Obviously want to push our federal and state partners to do all that they should do and could do, starting with, of course, the Army Corps of Engineers. I think one of the missing links, and we put out a report in my office, is the coordination with grassroots organizations, nonprofits, faith-based groups. I think there was a lack of cognizance before Sandy of just how much we would depend on them when things really got tough. And you saw how it played out, how much nonprofits and faith groups and neighborhood groups really led the way in a lot of relief. So I want, going forward, to integrate them into our emergency planning, to make sure that they have access to fuel supplies if, God forbid, fuel is limited. I think we need to take a much more grassroots approach to preparation this time.
But you would implement much of his resiliency.
As I've said many, many times, yes.
Do you plan on visiting other communities affected by Hurricane Sandy?
Well, I've been to Seagate, and I intend to go back, and this is going to be an ongoing thing. Not just in these coming weeks, but going forward. I've been to Coney Island, I've been to Seagate, look forward to going back to both.
Your opponent is talking about building. Your opponent is talking about building jetties. He says that's what we need to make sure that the next storm doesn't cause as much destruction. Do you believe that that's a good idea?
In certain places, but again, my broad view is that the resiliency plan put forward by the current administration is a good model to start with. I very much think that some of the things that worked well, even during Sandy, the dunes that had been built up made a major impact. I wanted to see us do a lot more of that, a lot more wetlands restoration. So it's a variety of measures. It depends on the area, obviously. But I think those more natural approaches are the ones that seem to work.
What would you write in that?
We have time for two more questions.
Yeah, he wants to
I can't remember if it was one or two of the rallies that we sort of tried to assist Billy with. I've been to one of the rallies already in St. John's, but St. John's situation is developing. I think, thank God, it's doing a lot early. There's plenty of devastation to protect St. John's. It would be a high priority community.
What would you write in that letter of recommendation?
We have somebody in a wheelchair that have a question.
What would you write in that letter of recommendation to Gabriella that you discussed with her?
I look forward to getting to know her and helping her in any way I can. But I think for families that have been affected in this way, anything I can do to help them pursue their goals, I'd like to do.
Okay, guys, but no,
On the health issue, in the immediate system, there's not a single pharmacy open.
Yes, I remember.
And there were people with diabetes, with hypertension, you couldn't get them meds.
Yep.
What really, if you're the next mayor, what would you do about that?
Well, this is an issue I worked with both Senator Sanders and Assemblyman Goldfeder on. We were stunned. I'll editorialize in their own words, but the pharmacies were one of the crucial pieces of the equation, but the relief efforts really weren't addressing the fact that this is how, especially in the absence of municipal, this was how a percentage of people out there got access to health care. They were knocked out for lack of electricity. So one of the things that I proposed was to have a door-to-door effort by the city government to bring meds to people who needed them, and to try and do more to get the pharmacies back online quickly, separate generators, whatever to do it. And I think this was a case where the administration was not particularly receptive to these types of approaches, but I think we learned a lot, sadly. Thanks, everyone. Okay.